Welcome to the Explainer. We spend so much time completely obsessed with our human genetics, right? We're hyper-focused on the DNA we inherited from our parents. But what if I told you that your health span and ultimately your longevity aren't just dictated by your human cells? What if the real secret to a long, vibrant life is actually controlled by the trillions of microscopic co-pilots living right inside of you? Today, we are decoding your internal ecosystem to figure out exactly how we can cultivate it for a longer, healthier life. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand how this works, we actually need to look back over a century. Death begins in the colon. Now, that wasn't said by some modern wellness influencer. That was Elie Metchnikoff, a 19th century Nobel laureate. And the backstory here is just fascinating. Metchnikoff made these observations back when, believe it or not, bloodletting was still a widely popular medical treatment. He noticed that there were these specific populations of centenarians, people living past 100, staying super active and healthy, who all regularly drank sour milk, which of course was packed with bacterial cultures. He made a stunningly direct link between human longevity and a healthy balance of bacteria in the gut. In fact, he actually coined the term probiotic. He realized over a century ago that, for us to thrive, the good bacteria simply must outnumber the bad.
Section 1. Meet your forgotten organ. Discovering the bioterrain.
To truly grasp what Metchnikoff was talking about, we really need to completely reframe how we view our own bodies. Modern science now recognizes the gut as an actual, dynamic, postnatal organ system. And to give you a sense of the sheer scale of this system, your microbiome weighs about 4 to 5 pounds. So yeah, next time you step on the scale, you can literally blame a few pounds on your microbes. That's roughly 2% of your total body weight. We're talking about roughly 100 trillion symbiotic microbial cells just hanging out inside of you. And they aren't just hitching a ride. They're actively participating in shaping our evolution, communicating directly with our central nervous system, and even switching our human genes on and off. It's wild.
Naturopaths and modern researchers actually refer to this internal ecosystem as the bioterrain. Think of it as the soil or the playing field of your body. When you get a blood test, you aren't just measuring your human metabolites anymore. You're measuring the biochemical footprint of this vast inner ecology. This bioterrain is literally a living record of your evolutionary history, your diet, your environment, and even the specific microbes passed down to you from your mother. And just like the soil in a garden, this terrain requires some very careful, intentional cultivation.
Just think about the contrast here. The human genome contains about 22,000 genes. And as a species, humans are about 99.9% genetically identical to one another. But the microbiome genome, it contains a staggering 3.3 million microbial genes. And your microbiome can be 80 to 90% completely different from the person sitting right next to you. So while our human DNA is remarkably similar across the board, our microbial fingerprint is vastly, wildly different. This is exactly why treating the microbiome is being called the absolute ultimate frontier in personalized medicine.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 2. Aging and the gut. The life cycle of your microbes. Just as your body ages, your microbiome evolves right alongside you. Our microbes really do take a chronological journey with us. In infancy, especially if breastfed, our guts are heavily colonized by beneficial bugs like Bifidobacterium. Then, in adulthood, usually between the ages of 18 and 70, our microbiome hits its peak diversity and stability. But as we enter our 70s, we hit a serious critical danger zone. Microbial diversity drastically declines. Those beneficial anti-aging bacteria start to die off, and pro-inflammatory, pathogenic bacteria begin to rise up. And this exact shift is deeply linked to age-related frailty, systemic inflammation, and even cognitive decline. But here's the good news. It absolutely does not have to be a steady decline. If we manage our bioterrain properly, we can cultivate these absolute powerhouse defenders. Think of these guys as your internal comic book heroes for longevity. You have Bifidobacterium longum, which is an early colonizer that swoops in to scavenge age-accelerating free radicals, and it's actually been shown to reduce anxiety. Then there's Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, your absolute heavy hitter for controlling inflammation. Higher levels of this bug are inversely correlated with the severity of viral infections, so the more you have, the better your immune system fights things off. And Akkermansia mucinifila is heavily implicated in keeping your metabolic health robust. Basically, if you want to live a long, healthy life, you want a massive army of these specific heroes setting up camp in your gut.
Section 3. Starving our microbial cells. The Western diet paradox.
And this brilliantly illustrates the central paradox we're facing today. When you look at isolated populations, like the Yanomami tribe, they have maintained incredibly rich, protective, and diverse gut flora. Because of this massive biodiversity, they hardly ever suffer from the chronic, inflammatory conditions we do. But then you look at populations in the USA, and it's a completely different story. Our highly depleted microbiome is a direct reflection of our modern Western lifestyle, and it is fundamentally linked to the skyrocketing rates of chronic illness we're seeing today.
Let's break down exactly why that massive gap exists. When we contrast a modern Western lifestyle with ancestral hunter-gatherers, like the Hadza people of Tanzania, the numbers are just shocking. The Hadza eat a staggering 120 grams of fiber a day. They live close to nature, which means they're constantly exposed to a huge variety of plant and animal microbes. Meanwhile, over in the West, we average a pretty measly 9 to 10 grams of fiber a day, relying heavily on highly processed foods while living in high-stress environments. The terrifying reality here is that Westerners have already lost 50% of the bacterial species in our guts compared to these tribal populations. We are, quite literally, starving our microbial selves to death.
Section 4. Feeding your internal ecosystem, the prescription for longevity.
Now, unlike your human DNA, which you are mostly stuck with, you can actively change, mold, and improve your microbial DNA. And you can start doing it literally today. The secret isn't to carpet bomb your gut with harsh interventions, though. The ideal way to manage this internal biofilm is through a much more gradual weeding and seeding approach. First, you gently weed out the pathogenic inflammatory bacteria. Second, you seed the gut by bringing in new, good bacteria to dramatically increase that lost biodiversity. And finally, you absolutely have to feed that new ecosystem with the right fuel to sustain it, ensuring those hero microbes actually decide to stick around for the long haul.
So, the crucial point is figuring out your actionable bioterrain plan. First, prioritize a varied, organic, whole foods diet and drastically increase your plant fibers. This is non-negotiable fuel that your gut bugs simply need to survive. Prebiotics, like root vegetables, and traditional fermented foods like kefir and yogurt are incredibly helpful for seeding that biodiversity. And crucially, you have to fiercely protect what you've got by limiting unnecessary antibiotics, which can wipe out up to 90% of your beneficial flora in just one course. When you feed your gut all these healthy fibers, your bacteria ferment them and produce highly anti-inflammatory, anti-aging byproducts like butyrate. And honestly, butyrate is the true fountain of youth.
Section 5. The future of medicine, a personalized path forward.
As we look ahead, this science is completely reshaping how we think about preventative health. We're moving away from this outdated one-size-fits-all approach and entering an era of incredibly personalized medicine. Professor John Cryan actually made a brilliant prediction about this. He stated that within the next 5 years, when you go to your doctor for a standard checkup, they won't just be checking your cholesterol, they will assess your microbiome. The days of only checking standard human blood markers are ending. Testing our microbial metabolic footprint, our bioterrain, is without a doubt the true future of medicine.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to take with you to your very next meal. When you sit down to eat, I want you to look at your plate and ask yourself, are you just feeding yourself or are you feeding your microbiome? Because your trillions of microscopic co-pilots are extremely hungry, and your longevity depends entirely on what you decide to feed them. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.